Singular Menace, Book 1, Uncaged, by John Sandford and Michele Cook. Prologue. In the end. The naked girl stared at herself in the motel mirror, a little sick with what she was about to do. She was slender, with muscles in her arms and shoulders, and red hair that fell to her waist. A scratch trailed from her hairline down to one eyebrow. Her lower lip was swollen, raw on the inside where her teeth had cut into it. She had the salty taste of blood in her mouth. She'd just gotten out of the shower where she'd scrubbed someone else's blood off her clothes and body. Now for the hair. Has to be done, she thought. She shook out the Walgreens bag. A pair of shears, a comb, and a box of Clairol Nice and Easy clattered down onto the Formica counter beside the sink. Behind her, the gray, wolf-like dog was on its feet, watching her, picking up on the stress. The dog made a rumbling sound in its throat. She turned and said, "You're gonna get it too." The motel was a dump, but a half a century earlier, 20 rooms stretched along a broken blacktop parking lot. The room smelled of cigarette smoke, sweat, urine, whiskey, and disinfectant. The windows were glazed with dirt, and the Venetian blinds were yellow with age. The bed was short and lumpy, covered with a shiny maroon bedspread that she didn't want to touch. Instead of throwing her clothes on the bed, she'd hung them on a hook by the shower. The wooden handle of a wicked knife stuck out of a sheath tucked inside the back pocket of the jeans. An ancient television sat on a corner table. It didn't work. The room had one solid appliance, the big chain on the door, which she thought it probably needed. The motel office was down at the far end of the building. When she walked in a half hour earlier, the clerk, a too thin, wind-burnt man in his 40s, with a hard, bobbing Adam's apple, had said, "We don't usually take dogs." She ignored the comment. "How much for the room?" He looked her over. She wore a hoodie pulled down over her forehead and sunglasses. The bottom part of her face was pretty, except for a bruised lip. Her only luggage was a man's leather briefcase. "Could be free, depending," he said, trying to be cool about it. He failed. The office looked like it hadn't been cleaned since the place was built, with paper trash everywhere. A dusty box of Snickers candy bars was propped up next to the cash register, the same cash register that had a trucker's bumper sticker stuck to it that read, "Ass, grass, or cash. Nobody rides free." Somebody had crossed out the rides with a magic marker and written above it, "Sleeps." "I don't want free," the girl said. She dug a $20 bill out of her jeans, held it up with two fingers. "For me and the dog. I only want the room for a couple of hours, for a shower and a nap. I don't need a receipt." He looked her over again, then reached under the counter and produced a key on a tag. "You're in room 18. Be out by 1 o'clock. You bring any guys, I get it cut." "Won't be any guys," she said. She snapped the bill down onto the counter, took the key, and was out of there. Standing naked in front of the mirror, she picked up the shears and ran her fingers through her hair. No more sentimental moments. She started cutting. When she was done, the long curls of red hair lay in the sink, like streaks of blood. In the mirror, she'd changed. She looked lighter, thinner, almost elfin. The short hair emphasized her high cheekbones. She'd cut it just short of punk. Now for the color. She took 2 bottles, a tube of conditioner, and some gloves out of the Clairol box, read the instructions, poured the color into the activator, and began working the black dye through her hair. Because her hair was so short, she'd need less than half of it. Behind her, the dog whimpered. "It smells like cat pee, huh?" When she was finished, she picked up the comb, got the bottle, and said, "Come here, boy." The dog whimpered again. An hour later, they were done. She pulled on her damp shirt, put the comb and shears in the briefcase, and used the last of the motel towels to dry her hair and the dog's. He was contributing a whole new stink to the smelly room. "Let's get your collar back on," she said. "You look undressed." The dog had been a silver gray. She'd used the comb to drag the color through the hair on his forehead, back, and sides, but hadn't tried to get all of it. He looked pretty good in black and gray, like an off-brand German Shepherd. She looked off-brand herself, different. So different that after she buckled the collar on the dog, she turned and examined herself in the mirror for a long minute, getting used to it. Shay Remby was gone. Who was this new girl? She moved the sheath and knife to the small of her back, pulled on her hoodie, and picked up the briefcase. The dog was already at the door. She clicked on its leash, tossed the room key on the table next to the TV, and then they were out of the motel and walking down the street, moving fast. There ought to be good parks at Stockton, California, she thought, but this wasn't one of them. The streets were rough, the buildings decrepit. Broken windows were everywhere. The ones that weren't broken were covered with bars or heavy mesh screens. A gang was busy tagging the bare concrete walls and every other flat place they could find. She turned the corner and saw Spartan assembly straight ahead. She had no idea what was down there. A factory of some kind, she thought, with 50 cars parked outside. The best place to hide a car, she'd learned in the last few days, is a crowded parking lot. "You're going to smell up the Jeep," she said to the dog. "I love you anyway." The dog rumpled at her. The black Jeep Rubicon, almost new, sat in the middle row of the parking lot. She popped the door, let the dog jump into the driver's seat, then pushed him over to the passenger side. A moment later they were moving, the girl and the dog turning their heads to look out the windshield, the side and back windows, on guard against the world, running.